So this is part two, and what I'm going to do is go through this document again. I've been through the first page of the 21-page document, and we'll see how far we get in approximately 20 minutes in this video as I go through it. So here we go. I'll read it to you. As an amicus curiae, friend of the court, I am providing the judiciary and the court with information that is not only of paramount importance to a case currently being dealt with by the UK justice system, but also linked information relating to further crimes perpetrated by the parties to this case, for which justice will be required to be served. The agenda-serving UK Serious Fraud Office has corruptly refused to investigate the global fraud identified in this court submission. So I am informing the UK Supreme Court that a UK agency has refused to investigate a crime. They should have a requirement to do something. Additionally, the judiciary and the court is being formally notified of criminal conduct and systematic failure of both the judiciary and the entire justice system. So in accordance with your duty to prevent injustice, you are required to take action. Look it up. Judges have a judicial obligation to justice for the promotion of justice and the prevention of injustice. They are having reported to them criminality within their construct, within their ranks. They have an obligation to do something about it. So I demand that all 12 justices, which is the title of the 12 judges of the Supreme Court, of the Supreme Court, hold themselves accountable to the overriding duty of every judge, which is to promote justice and prevent injustice. The justice system and courts should not be a tool to perpetrate the agendas of the likes of the Rothschild loan shark financial controllers of this world and their extremely intelligent enforcement agencies who control regimes, hand the control of resources to the asset managers, and subjugate people. Now, I realise many people won't be able to cope with that, but the reality of the construct that we live in is that we do not live in democracy. Those people that we supposedly elect to represent the needs of the people, that is all a facade. The only interests that are represented are those of the finance sector, the banking sector, who seek to control all of the resources, and everybody is enslaved to that. And who perpetrates that agenda? Well, who does affect the regime changes? Well, look at what really happens. Look at what has happened with the US and Venezuela had some oil that the US wanted. So what do? They go and take it. How do they take it? Well, what they normally try and do is use the intelligence agencies, the likes of the CIA, the likes of Mossad, the likes of MI5, MI6, that axis of Western democracy, and they affect regime change. They usually displace the elected government, put in place their own puppet government, and then that puppet government agrees to the extraction of those resources to the empire. And that wealthy sector now is in control of those oils and exploits everybody maximally for something that they need. Now, our justice system doesn't do anything about that. No, don't you worry, little heads. Look into it, all right? But ultimately, that is not what our justice system should be there to defend. Anyway, let's crack on. Sadly, all of what should be societal institutions have become infiltrated by greed and evil. Corrupt operators serving private wealth, power, and empire, with many corrupt operators being willing to serve to perpetrate, enabling neglect exploitation and harm in return for their few crumbs of the pie or pizza, or the privilege of remaining alive. You see, that's the way it is. If you can't be puppeted, they kill you. Okay, they kill you. If you expose them, they kill you. Okay, there's a book, it's set about 2,000 years ago, and one of the stories within that book is that there was this guy, and essentially he opposed the empire of the day. He opposed that controlling entity that was exploiting everybody, and as a result of him doing that and being a threat to that, well, basically all they do is they nail you to a cross. They publicly execute you to make an example to everybody else that you don't go up against power. All right, that's the way it works. All right, so lots of people will just toe the line for their reward, or just back down, won't they? That's what we live in, sadly, and it's been going on for centuries. They write books about it, but don't you worry, little heads. Just keep watching the next Grand Prix because it'll be exciting. Anyway, your duty, this is the court and the judges, is not to defend your industry chums who act corruptly, not to serve corrupt political and corrupt ideological agenda. Your duty is to the promotion of justice and the prevention of injustice. Strange that they get you to put your hand on the Bible to swear that you're telling the truth, isn't it? When you go to these courts, His Majesty's courts, you have to put your hand on the Bible to tell them that you're telling the truth. They don't. Don't you worry about that. Not the oppressive empire. That's their rules. You, the court, are responsible for upholding and enforcing the social contract. Do some research, find out what that is. Find out what happens when that breaks down. The legitimacy of the UK court and UK judiciary is at stake. When public confidence in the notion of rule of law collapses due to a corrupt justice system, there can be huge societal ramifications. So let's get into this. The case, KB 2024 000753, is being entirely misrepresented by all involved, both legal teams and Judge J. 2. This constitutes a criminal fraud, a facade to mislead the population. So, that is what they're doing. They are running a corrupt case. How is it being reported? What is your understanding of this case? Your understanding is that MASSA is seeking to be recognised as a world champion and get 64 million. Nobody's told you the dynamics of it. Oh, because they've got what is another tool of the empire, the mind conditioning machine, their media, right? That will just condition your mind with, oh, this is how you need to believe what's going on here. That's the way it works. Nobody breaks it down. You'll find out how this gets broken down here. The facade is taking place with ulterior motive to seek to protect the perpetrators from being held accountable for other crimes which they have perpetrated since, notably the fixing of the Sports Championship in 2021, a global sporting fraud. Number 4, the notion of seeking to void a sporting event due to one team or competitor cheating is ridiculous. The simple known consequence for such is the disqualification of the cheating team and or their competitors, or competitor/competitors. Massa's lawyer, DeMarco, is therefore presenting a corrupt case. So Massa's lawyer is presenting a corrupt case. Number 5, despite a team/competitor cheating, all other competitors were still able to continue competing and contesting the event. Massa was not denied the opportunity to compete. His team made an error. Were it not for that, he would have been able to contest with those who previously was prior to that team error. So Massa's chances were not harmed due to that crash. He still had the opportunity, he still had the lead of the race. The pit lane open, he went into the pits, he could have pitted, refueled, changed his tyre, got back out there. The only cars that would have passed would have been the ones that were running different strategies. The only one that really benefited from that was Alonso. You disqualify Alonso because his team cheated. Massa could have still won that race. The Ferrari error prevented that from happening. Everybody else, that's what they did. Hamilton had to pit. Hamilton had to get refueled and new tyres, and he went and re-emerged onto the track. He was able to continue racing. He picked up points. You disqualify Alonso, he finishes a place higher. That's all it is. So, number 6, Eccleston, Formula One. Okay, the FIA perpetrated a global fraud by covering up the sporting fraud perpetrated by the Renault Formula One team. That is factually what has taken place. It is acknowledged that they knew about it in 2008 yet covered it up. A sports governing body has a duty, an ethical obligation to uphold the rules and regulations of the sport in order to uphold the integrity of the sport. Corrupt Judge Quest will try to argue otherwise. So David Quest is the barrister representing the entity of Eccleston Formula One, the FIA. He also operates as a judge. He is trying to put forward arguments to try and absolve these criminals, these people that perpetrate this fraud. He's trying to absolve them of consequence for the crime that they have committed. And the arguments that he tries to bring forward are the likes of, and I'll go through this in Jay's report, the likes of whether the British courts can even punish the FIA because the FIA, can they only be punished under French law because they operate out of France? And do the FIA have an obligation to uphold the rules and regulations of the sport and take action? And if they do, who do they have that obligation to? And is that obligation to all gaslighting bullshit? They've committed a crime. This crime has come to light, where the knowledge has been revealed. They knew about it then and took no action. And the action that they took since was not applicable to the crime. This is a fraud. And yet you've got a UK judge seeking to absolve the perpetrators of consequence for their crime. That is seeking to pervert the course of justice. That is a UK judge. That is an operator in the UK justice system seeking to pervert the course of justice. That's a criminal. That's a criminal offence. And yet a criminal can be a judge. How messed up is this? So, acting to conceal a crime is an act of fraud. That crime was perpetrated by the convicted fraudster Bernie Eccleston, acting on behalf of Formula One and acting in conjunction with the government of the sport, the FIA. The concealment of the crime was done to protect the economic interest of the product, the marketing rights holders, Formula One, and the FIA, who receive a proportion of their annual income from this so-called sport. As he is paid handsomely to do so, Judge Quest, now acting in the role of arguer, advocating for evil, to seek to absolve criminal perpetrators of consequence for their crime, presents to argue otherwise, such is the integrity of those deemed fit to hold office in the corrupt UK judiciary. According to the Bar Standards Board and the Judicial Conduct Investigations Office, and I'll show you the responses I've had from those, having zero integrity and seeking to pervert the course of justice is perfectly acceptable in the facade that is the UK, His Majesty's justice industry. Now also consider the timing of this case. On the 12th of October 2023, Eccleston was given a 17-month prison sentence for fraud, suspended for 2 years. Felipe Massa filed the facade of a lawsuit on the 11th of March 2024. The first hearing then scheduled for October 2025. So, 19 months after it's filed, they get the hearing. And that hearing is just after this suspended 2-year period expires. Because had it been exposed that Eccleston was guilty of another crime within that 2 years, you go to jail. Go directly to jail. Do not pass go. Do not collect £200, Bernie Eccleston. Oh no, that 2 years has now elapsed. We'll now conduct the facade. So it's after the 2 year period whereby Eccleston would have been sent to prison for further offences. Your entire legal system is a corrupt facade to protect the interests of wealth and power, a total manipulation. Manipulated by evil, such as Jay and Quest acting with impunity. What is the consequence for these criminal scum? How come you don't have people of the integrity and the intelligence to see what is going on here? It is a clear problem that none of you justices of the Supreme Court are able to see or are willing to act to change the catastrophic flaws in your facade of an industry, which calls into question the safety of any judgment made by the UK court and its corrupt independent judiciary. Corrupt manipulators, fixers for the establishment. A justice industry is so independent the outcomes get determined by corrupt operators from the same club, bar, chambers, lodge, acting with impunity to ignore truth, facts, and context to manipulate and generate outcomes between themselves, enriching themselves under the facade of law, legal, and justice. Because that's what they do. Private operators, lawyers, acting under the guise of justice. You've got lawyer DeMarco from the Chambers. You've got lawyer Quest from another Chambers. You've got Jay from another Chambers acting in the role of judge, directing this facade between this Chambers and that Chambers. And each Chambers can extract millions from MASSA. Yeah, you keep paying us, MASSA, and we'll try and win this for you. Oh, you need to defend this charge against you, Eccleston, the FIA Formula 1. Oh, you keep paying us, we'll defend this against. We'll play out this corrupt facade in each of these private chambers. Make the money. Facilitated by Jay of another Chambers under the facade of legal. And it's all a corrupt facade. What's taken place? Who has committed the crime? Who has done something wrong? Who has been harmed by the situation? And what needs to be done to correct it? How do we compensate the harmed parties? And how do we then appropriately sanction those who perpetrated the misconduct? That is what justice looks like, not the fuckery being perpetrated by this case. So, thousands of people became the real victims of the fraud. The case being staged ignores all of them. Hence, it is a corrupt construct. I will act in a fiduciary capacity to obtain justice for the real victims of the Eccleston Formula 1 FIA fraudulent cover-up. Now, what that means is I'm acting on behalf of and in the best interests of other people in this case. Now, according to the rules of the game, which are in the Civil Procedures Rules, the CPR, two massively thick books, the thickness of Lord of the Rings each. They tell you the rules for how we play the back and forth. But you see, these rules aren't fit for purpose. Okay, they're not fit for purpose. They're tools of manipulation, and what they actually do, there's many of them which will say, well, here are the rules, and they're again gaslighting, designed to deter the layman from engaging in their corrupt facade, because you'll read them and within 2 pages you will lose the will to live. You will want to go to sleep. They're contradictory, and what you'll get through to various stages of them, and it's essentially the 15.3, the race director having the overriding authority to freestyle it. Okay, essentially that's what it says. The judge, here are the rules, but the judge can actually choose to not apply the rules, and there's a reason for that. What the judge must be able to do is take the appropriate action relative to the circumstance. So if whatever is taking place, what they need to judge on the rules in place don't result in that being sorted out, or would cause further harm to that situation, they've got to deviate from those rules, because those rules aren't fit for purpose. Sorry, this is my 20-minute timer. So essentially, we've got two massively thick books of rules, but within those rules, you've got, well, the judge can override the rules, which means those books are a load of bollocks then, aren't they? Here are the rules, but the judge can ignore the rules. So they're not worth the paper that they're written on. And what these rules will say is, if you submit a amicus curiae, friend of the court, interjection into proceedings, then you're not representing anybody. Well, I am going to represent somebody, because your rules don't reflect this particular situation. This particular situation is a fraudulent facade, and the true people impacted aren't being represented, and I evidently cannot trust anybody to represent them, because what confidence are you giving me in your corrupt system that your lawyers that claim to be the world leading legal experts that can't identify who the harmed parties are? You see, I can. What does that make me? Does that make me the best barrister in the world? Or is it because I've not been to university? Well, I have, but I didn't do the course which taught you how to monetize a conflict. And because I didn't do that, then I can't be accredited as a game player within their game. Oh, is that how it works, is it? No, no. I'm representing the harmed parties, because you people have zero integrity. I can't trust you to act in the interests of justice in this case. I can't trust you to represent the harmed parties and make sure that they get justice. So I'm doing both. I am a friend of the court, and I'm also representing the harmed parties in the interest of justice. And as these justices, these judges, have an obligation to the notion of justice, they have to freestyle the CPR rules to accept, indeed, justice is what must happen here, and therefore I am indeed able to represent the people who have been harmed, that don't know they've been harmed. So, subject to revision, should further victims be identified, the amount being claimed from Eccleston, Formula One, the FIA to compensate the real victims is £718 million. 718 million of the King's pounds. I'll also be claiming administration costs. Right, that will do on this video. It's just over 20 minutes long, so tune in for part 3, which will be along soon. Thanks for your time.